A big development on the college admissions front. Georgia Tech making a change to its college application process. It is now eliminating the supplemental essay requirement for applicants, first-year students applying starting with the 2027 admissions cycle. We're joined live right now by Mary Tipton Woolley, who is the Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission. Mary Tipton, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. Let's start with this, the obvious question: why make this change and why make it now?
Of course. Well, great to talk with you and everyone today. This is the start of the application cycle. The first year application for all the universities that utilize the open was obviously this past Saturday. And our cycle is to evaluate our application in the late spring and summer and determine changes that we need to make. And we just announced those last week as students are headed back to school, many students today, and then obviously getting started on the application process for the 2027 school year.
And for families and for students who may be thinking about applying next year, what do you want them to know?
I think the most important thing for students to know is this really is our intent is to make the application process more simplified for students. It's taking away one piece that, as we looked at the data and we talked with our internal staff here in the admission office and we talked with our campus partners, we realized that the application or the essay was not serving the purpose it served maybe 5, 10 years ago, and it was time to make a change. But again, it's not taking anything away from the rigor of the process, the holistic nature of our review process, but instead really aiming to make it simpler for our students, especially here in the state of Georgia that are, like I said, starting school and getting ready to apply to college.
And there are, as you certainly in your job know, lots of students going back to school, some of them today for the first
That's
class of
right.
the year, and many of those are high school juniors and seniors who are paying very close attention to the college admissions process. Mary Tipton, you said something in your response there I want to circle back to. You mentioned that as your team was evaluating the future of the
Mm-hmm.
supplemental essay, you said y'all reached a determination that it perhaps is not serving the same purpose and usefulness that it was 5 or 10 years ago. I think back to when I was applying to college, which is further back than that, and we were always told the supplemental essay for any school that took it was another tool for the admissions team to get to know you as an applicant, get to know you beyond your resume and your extracurriculars and your GPA and your test scores. Is that no longer as important, or do you have a different tool to evaluate potential candidates along those metrics, alongside the more hard and fast, GPA and test scores elements?
Mm-hmm. No, great question. And pretty sure I applied longer ago than you did with no essay back then. But I think the personal essay or the long essay, whatever students and families call it on the common application, really serves the purpose you're describing, right? It's kind of taking the place of maybe a conversation we wish we could have, but at a volume of 68,000 applicants last year, that's just not possible. That's the place that students can really sort of tell us a little bit more about who they are, or maybe just enhance what they've been put in kind of a rote form on the rest of the application. The supplemental essay was really intended to be a little bit more about why Georgia Tech, why a specific program of interest. And over time, as there's, when you have the same question out there for a long time, we know that there is increasing resources for students to take advantage of. They see things on the web. They might be working with coaches. There's AI that is in the mix now as well. And the difference between from one student to another has really just diminished over time. It's much harder to use that as a point to differentiate students.
Mary Tipton, it's funny talking to you. I feel myself flashing back a little bit to admissions interviews where I was on the receiving end of the interview. So what a treat that I get to ask
Uh-huh.
the questions of you. You mentioned the volume of applicants to Georgia Tech, 68,000 applications.
Yes.
That is a tremendous number of students who want to come to Georgia Tech, certainly an indication of Georgia Tech and the great education folks are going to get there. But I know you do it every year, but I've got to speak for the families and the students and kind of the lay folks out there who hear that number and think, how in the world can you evaluate 68,000 people and then reach a determination that says, hey, here are the students we think are the best fit, and here are the ones who maybe aren't? How do you do all that?
Well, I first laugh and say I came by glasses honestly, but honestly, it's not me. Of course, I'm not evaluating that many applications. We have a tremendous team here of full-time staff that work year round. They're out in high school starting in just a couple of weeks. to talk with students across the state of Georgia and help them understand what Georgia Tech could mean for them and their family. But we also have additional folks that join us just for application reading season, as we call it in our office. They'll join us later in the fall and help us in our reviews. So we essentially are doubling our staff size during that time. It's important to us that we read through the full application for a student. We don't want to just use numbers to make decisions. We want to get to know, to your point you made earlier, who are the students, what might they contribute to each other and to our campus. That's really important to us as we make decisions.
You mentioned too, talking about the college admissions and application and advice and advisors ecosystem that exists outside of and around so many high school upperclassmen who are getting ready to apply and throughout the application process. You referenced AI that's now out there. I wonder if the decision to pull back on the supplemental essay is in some ways a reflection of an increasing acknowledgement among some admissions professionals that it's harder and harder to know whether an essay written by an applicant was in fact fully written by them or if they got some help from a chatbot out there.
I think that is something that we are certainly thinking about. I'd be remiss not to say that, as has always been the case, the most important thing for a student applying to Georgia Tech and probably to most colleges is the academic effort that they put in high school, the classes that they've taken, the grades that they've earned. That really helps us to understand if they're going to be a fit for us academically and that they're going to be able to be successful here. So that continues to be the number one most important point for a student. I think to the point I was making, and whether it's AI or like I said, just you can just go out on the internet on your favorite search engine and look for college essays and get plenty of examples of those. And it certainly does contribute to some of the sameness, that piece where we're unable to distinguish one student from another in a way that's meaningful to our process and more importantly to a student's decision. And again, if it's not helping us to make a decision, then we don't want to keep it a part of the application, especially not when it's something like an essay that we know is going to take a lot of time and consternation from students and families.
We always want to be respectful of your time, hopefully not causing any consternation. I want to ask you just a couple of last questions before we let you go here. Your advice to students and families, and kind of two sub topics on this. The first is this. I remember when I was applying, I'm sure it's even more so now, when you become a high schooler, certainly as you get older, you get up into those upperclassmen years, there can be a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. In some ways, it feels like more students are applying to more schools than ever before, and there's all this extra stuff attached to college admissions and applications. There are college advisors. Sometimes people get extra tutors. It can really become a pressure cooker for students and for families. And I've always heard from admissions folks, in the end, pick a school that's right for you. Is that still good advice? And what do you wish you could tell to all the parents and all the students that are feeling understandable anxiety this time of year about college applications?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. And it has changed so much since we applied to college. And you were right. The data shows that students are applying to more and more schools. What I think hasn't changed is yes, there's a lot of pressure surrounding it, but it's truly a time for students to really think about what do they want for their 4 years after high school? What do they want for their life? And of course, we always say, like, what do you want for your career? But maybe what do you want in your life and career balance? And starting to you don't have to make all those decisions right now when you're 17 and 18, but starting to think about what that means and being really thoughtful about that. I think that's part of the college admission process. You always hear us on the admission side saying things like finding the fit, and you sort of said that yourself. I think that's part of it, right? Like, what college is going to help me achieve the life that I want after I graduate college in all different ways? And how do I find a place where I'm going to feel at home and comfortable, and a place where I can really grow and expand over the time that I'm in that college campus? I think that's an incredibly important part of it. I do think for that reason, it's a really personal process for students and for the people that are supporting them in the process. And the more that students can keep that close to them and those that are really supporting them, I think that can help students to have a process that isn't so impacted by the noise all around them. As you mentioned, there's a lot of that. Figuring out who is in their support network, that close-in network, is really important. And now's a good time to start talking about that. And what do you want that to look like around the dinner table or in the kitchen, in the drive to wherever, school, whatnot? I think that's important for families.
Important advice. Let's end here for somebody who is looking at Georgia Tech as one of their potential target schools. Where can they go for more information about your application process, any more information they might need about the pulling back from a supplemental essay, and anything else a potential applicant to Georgia Tech would want to know?
Absolutely. Well, there's plenty of information on the Georgia Tech admission website. We are still hosting daily tours, but I think one of the most important things for families to know about is we'll be hitting the road in a couple of weeks with our colleagues from Georgia State University, the University of Georgia, and Augusta University to go throughout the state of Georgia, sharing about the 4 research universities in the state in a program that we call the Peach State Tour. And so a great kickoff to our year and a great way for us to get out throughout the state and talk with students and families and their school officials.
All right, the Peach State Tour about to kick off, coinciding, of
Yes.
course, with the return to campus for lots of Metro Atlanta and Georgia K through 12 students. And then, it's middle of summer, but college is going to be back in session before we know it. Mary Tipton Woolley, Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission at Georgia Tech, thank you very much for your time and your perspective, and good luck in this upcoming school year.
Thank you so much.